My name is Jessica. I am 32 years old, and 3 months ago, a waiter at Bellissimo's Italian restaurant laughed at my dinner order in front of the entire dining room. Everyone turned to stare at me. My face burned with shame. I wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. But by the end of that same night, he was the one who disappeared. His laughter died in his throat. The owner made him apologize to me in front of every single person who witnessed his cruelty, and he lost 2 weeks of pay. But this story doesn't start in that crowded restaurant with dozens of eyes on me. It starts that morning, when I woke up with a smile on my face, when I had finally received the news I had been waiting 5 years to hear, when I thought this was going to be the perfect day to celebrate something I had worked so hard for. I had no idea that by 8 o'clock that evening, I would be shaking with anger and humiliation. If you have ever been mocked by someone in customer service, this story is for you. If you have ever felt humiliated in a public place while others watched and did nothing, you will understand exactly how I felt that night. If you have ever wanted to stand up for yourself, but felt too small and too afraid, stay with me. Because what you are about to hear is not fiction. This actually happened to me. And if you want to see what happens when an ordinary person refuses to accept disrespect, make sure you subscribe to Revenge Leader. This channel is dedicated to real stories of real people who said enough is enough. People who stood up when it would have been easier to stay silent. People who demanded the dignity they deserved. And tonight, you will see exactly why speaking up is always worth it. So stay with me, because this gets very, very good. I need to tell you who I am, so you understand why that night mattered so much. I am an elementary school teacher. I teach 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, in a small city in North Carolina. I have been teaching for 7 years now. The pay is not great. I live in a small 1-bedroom apartment. I drive a 12-year-old Honda Civic. I shop at discount grocery stores, and I clip coupons every Sunday. I am not complaining. I love my job. I love my students. But money is always tight. Very tight. I rarely eat at restaurants, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Usually it is just fast food or takeout pizza. A nice sit-down dinner at a real restaurant is a luxury I cannot usually afford. So when I do go out, it means something. It is not just another Tuesday night. It is special. 3 months ago, I got news that changed everything. My principal called me into her office on a Friday afternoon. My heart was pounding. I thought I was in trouble. Instead, she smiled at me. She told me I was getting a raise. Not a small cost of living increase, a real raise. $5,000 more per year. It was because I had taken on extra responsibilities. I had started an after-school reading program. I had mentored 2 new teachers. I had gone above and beyond for 5 years straight, and finally, it was being recognized. I cried right there in her office. $5,000 might not sound like much to some people, but to me, it was life-changing. It meant I could breathe a little easier, save a little more, maybe even treat myself once in a while. I wanted to celebrate. I deserved to celebrate. I decided I would take myself out to dinner that Saturday night. Somewhere nice. Somewhere I had always wanted to try, but never could justify the expense. I had heard about Bellissimo's for years. It was this upscale Italian restaurant downtown. The kind of place with white tablecloths and candles on every table. The kind of place where people went for anniversaries and special occasions. I had walked past it dozens of times. I had looked at the menu posted outside. I had imagined what it would be like to eat there. And now, finally, I could. I made a reservation for 1, Saturday night at 7:30. I was nervous about going alone, but I told myself this was my celebration. I did not need anyone else. I had worked hard. I had earned this. I was going to enjoy it. Saturday arrived, and I spent the whole day feeling excited. I cleaned my apartment, I did laundry, I picked out my outfit carefully. I wanted to look nice but not overdressed. I chose a simple black dress and my only pair of good shoes. I curled my hair, I put on makeup. I looked at myself in the mirror and I felt good. I felt like I deserved to be there. I drove downtown and found parking 2 blocks away. My stomach was fluttering with nerves and excitement. The evening air was cool and pleasant. I walked slowly toward the restaurant. I could see the warm glow of lights inside. People were laughing and talking. It looked perfect. It looked like exactly the kind of night I needed. I took a deep breath and pulled open the heavy wooden door. The inside of Bellissimo's was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Soft Italian music played in the background. The walls were painted a warm terracotta color. Exposed brick, twinkling string lights, framed black and white photos of Italy. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air. My mouth watered immediately. A hostess greeted me with a genuine smile. She was warm and welcoming. She did not make me feel awkward for being alone. She led me to a small table near the window. Perfect. I sat down and she handed me a leather-bound menu. She told me my server would be right with me. I thanked her. I looked around the room. Couples, families, a group of friends celebrating something. Everyone looked happy. Everyone looked like they belonged. I told myself I belonged here too. I had earned this. A few minutes later, a young man approached my table. He was probably in his mid-20s. Tall, slicked back dark hair, crisp white shirt and black vest. His name tag said Marcus. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. He set down a basket of bread and a small dish of olive oil. He asked if I wanted to start with something to drink. I ordered sparkling water. He nodded and walked away. Nothing seemed wrong yet. Nothing seemed off. But looking back now, I should have noticed something in his expression. A flicker of judgment, maybe, or boredom, like he had already decided I was not worth his time. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was just nervous because this was new to me. I opened the menu and started reading. I need to explain something important. I have dietary restrictions. Not by choice. I have a condition called IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Certain foods trigger painful symptoms for me. Red meat is one of them. Heavy cream sauces are another. So I have to be careful about what I order when I eat out. I scanned the menu, looking for something safe. Most of the dishes had meat or heavy cream. Finally, I found something perfect. Pasta primavera. It was described as penne pasta with seasonal vegetables, garlic, olive oil, and fresh herbs. Simple, light, safe for me. It was also one of the less expensive items on the menu, only $18. I was relieved. I would not have to spend $30 or $40 on a single entree. I could enjoy my meal without worrying about my stomach or my budget. I felt good about my choice. Marcus returned with my sparkling water. He set it down and pulled out a small notepad. He asked if I was ready to order. I smiled and said yes. I told him I would like the pasta primavera. I pronounced it carefully. I even pointed to it on the menu to make sure there was no confusion. And that is when everything changed. His expression shifted. His eyebrows went up. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. He looked at me like I had just said something ridiculous. He did not write anything down. He just stared at me. The silence stretched out. I felt my stomach tighten. Something was wrong. I could feel it, but I did not understand what. I waited for him to say something, to confirm my order, to ask if I wanted anything else. Instead, what came out of his mouth next made my blood run cold. Marcus laughed. Not a polite chuckle, not a quiet sound. A full, loud laugh that echoed across the dining room. Heads turned. Conversations paused. People looked over at my table to see what was so funny. My face immediately started burning. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Marcus was still laughing. He shook his head like I had told him the funniest joke he had ever heard. Then he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "That's it? Just the pasta?" His tone was dripping with condescension, like I was a child who had ordered chicken nuggets at a steakhouse. I sat frozen in my seat. I did not know what to say. I did not understand what I had done wrong. Other diners were still looking. Some pretended not to be, but I could see them glancing over, watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus leaned in slightly and said, "You came to Bellissimo's for plain pasta and vegetables?" He emphasized the word plain like it was an insult. He was still smirking, still looking at me like I was beneath him. Then he added, "We have a children's menu if that's more your speed." A woman at the table next to me gasped softly. I heard it. Marcus heard it too, but he did not care. He was enjoying this. He thought he was being clever, funny, entertaining the other guests at my expense. My hands started shaking. I placed them in my lap so he would not see. My throat felt tight. I wanted to say something, to defend myself, but the words would not come. I just sat there, humiliated, small, invisible, exactly how he wanted me to feel. I looked down at my menu. I stared at the words, but I could not read them anymore. My vision was blurry. I was fighting back tears. I would not cry. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Not in front of him. I took a slow breath through my nose. I reminded myself why I was here. I had earned this. I had worked hard. I deserved to be treated with respect. But in that moment, I did not feel like I deserved anything. I felt like maybe he was right. Maybe I did not belong here. Maybe I should have just stayed home. Maybe I should have gone to Olive Garden or Applebee's instead. Somewhere cheaper. Somewhere more appropriate for someone like me. The thoughts swirled in my head. Cruel. Defeating. I hated that I was thinking them. But I could not stop. I forced myself to look up. Marcus was still standing there, waiting. His pen hovered over his notepad, but he still had not written anything down. Other diners were trying to go back to their meals, but I could feel their eyes, their curiosity, their pity. A couple 2 tables away whispered to each other. A man near the window shook his head slightly. Whether he was shaking his head at me or at Marcus, I could not tell. The whole room felt like it was watching me, judging me. I was the entertainment now. The awkward woman sitting alone who ordered the wrong thing, who did not know how to behave in a nice restaurant, who did not belong. My chest felt tight. My hands were still shaking. I wanted to stand up, walk out, never come back. But something stopped me. A tiny spark of anger beginning to ignite. Marcus was not done. He sighed dramatically. He said, "Look, if you're on some kind of diet, we can probably make you a salad or something." He said the word diet with the same mocking tone, like it was another joke, like my body, my choices, my health. Everything about me was fair game for his amusement. Then he added, "But I'm telling you, people come here for real Italian food, not rabbit food." He actually used those words, rabbit food. A few people heard it. I saw a woman's mouth drop open in shock. An older gentleman frowned deeply. but no one said anything. No one stood up for me. They just watched. Marcus seemed emboldened by their silence. He crossed his arms. He looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to apologize, to change my order, to admit I was wrong. I finally found my voice. It was shaky, but it was there. I said, "I would like the pasta primavera," as I ordered. My words came out quiet, polite, too polite. Marcus tilted his head. He said, "Are you sure? Because I'd hate for you to be disappointed when you realize it's just noodles and vegetables." He was still mocking me, still smiling that cruel smile. I felt my anger growing. The spark was becoming a flame. I said, more firmly this time, "I am sure, and I would appreciate it if you would speak to me with respect." His smile disappeared. His eyes narrowed. He looked at me like I had insulted him, like I was the rude one. He said, "I'm just trying to help you make a good choice." His tone was sharp now, defensive. I shook my head. I said, "I need to speak to your manager." Marcus's face changed completely. The fake friendliness vanished. Now he just looked annoyed. He rolled his eyes, actually rolled them right in front of me. He said, "The manager is busy. It's Saturday night." He said it like I was stupid, like I should have known better than to ask. I said, "Then I will wait." He scoffed. He said, "Look, lady, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm doing my job." My problem. He was calling this my problem. I felt my hands curl into fists under the table. I said, "Your job is to take my order, not to mock me in front of the entire restaurant." He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. I said, "Get your manager, now." My voice was louder than I intended. A few more heads turned. Marcus's jaw clenched. He did not like being told what to do, especially not by me. Marcus turned and walked away without another word. I sat there trembling. Half of me expected him to come back with the manager. The other half expected him to ignore me completely. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Other servers walked by my table. None of them stopped. None of them asked if I needed anything. I was being punished, frozen out. Finally, Marcus reappeared. He was carrying a plate. He set it down in front of me hard enough that the silverware rattled. I looked down. It was not pasta primavera. It was some kind of creamy fettuccine with chicken, exactly the kind of dish I could not eat. I looked up at him in disbelief. He smirked again. He said, "Kitchen made a mistake. Enjoy." Then he walked away before I could say anything. My mouth fell open. He had done this on purpose. He had brought me the wrong dish to humiliate me further. I stared at the plate in front of me. The smell of heavy cream made my stomach turn. I could not eat this. Even if I wanted to, I physically could not. It would make me sick for days. Marcus knew I had ordered something different. He had deliberately brought me this, to prove a point, to show me he had the power here, not me. I looked around the restaurant. People were eating, laughing, enjoying their evening. No one was paying attention to me anymore. The show was over. I could just leave, pay for the water and walk out, go home, cry in private, pretend this never happened. It would be easier, safer. I had been humiliated enough for one night, but then I thought about my students, about what I teach them every single day. Stand up for yourself. Use your voice. Do not let bullies win. Could I really walk away now? I made a decision. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking, but I managed to open the camera app. I switched it to video mode. I set my phone against the small vase of flowers on the table, angled it so it would capture my face and the table. I hit record. Then I picked up my fork and moved the plate slightly so the camera could see it clearly. I spoke in a calm, clear voice. I said, "My name is Jessica. I am at Bellissimo's Italian restaurant. I ordered pasta primavera. The waiter mocked my order in front of other customers. He brought me this dish instead, which I did not order and cannot eat due to medical reasons. He refused to get the manager when I asked." I paused, took a breath. Then I said, "I am documenting this because I will not be treated this way." I stopped recording. My heart was pounding. But for the first time all night, I did not feel small. I felt powerful. I was still staring at my phone when I heard a voice beside me. "Excuse me, dear." I looked up. An older woman was standing next to my table. She had gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore a navy blue dress and pearls. She looked kind, concerned. She glanced at the wrong dish on my table. Then she looked back at me. She said, "I saw what happened. I heard what that waiter said to you." My eyes filled with tears. Someone had noticed. Someone cared. She continued, "That was completely unacceptable. I have been coming to this restaurant for 15 years, and I have never seen such disgraceful behavior." Her voice was firm, maternal. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. She handed it to me. It had her name and phone number. She said, "If you need a witness, you call me. What he did was cruel and unprofessional." I took the card with shaking hands. I managed to whisper, "Thank you." She patted my shoulder gently before returning to her table. That woman's kindness gave me strength. I was not imagining this. I was not overreacting. What happened was wrong, and someone else saw it too. I picked up my phone again. I opened the Notes app. I typed her name from the business card. I wrote down the time, what Marcus had said, what he had done, everything I could remember. I was building my case. Then I looked at the wrong plate still sitting in front of me. I pushed it to the edge of the table. I was not leaving. Not anymore. Marcus wanted me to slink away in shame. He thought I would be too embarrassed to make a scene. He was wrong. I folded my hands on the table. I sat up straight. I waited. If the manager would not come to me, I would sit here all night if I had to. I was done being dismissed. About 5 minutes later, a man in a suit approached my table. He was in his 40s, balding, tired looking. His name tag said, "Manager, David." He had the expression of someone who had dealt with difficult customers before. He already looked like he did not believe me. Before I could speak, he said, "I understand there's been some confusion about your order." Confusion. That word made my jaw clench. I said, "There is no confusion. Your waiter mocked me publicly and brought me the wrong dish intentionally." David's smile was tight, practiced. He said, "I'm sorry you feel that way. Marcus is one of our best servers. I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding." "I'm sorry you feel that way." Not, "I'm sorry that happened." Not, "I'm sorry he treated you poorly." I'm sorry you feel that way. The non-apology that takes zero responsibility. I pulled out my phone. I said, "It was not a misunderstanding. I have a video recording of me explaining what happened. And I have a witness who heard everything." I gestured toward the older woman's table. She was watching us. She nodded at me encouragingly. David's expression changed slightly. The fake smile faded. He said, "A recording?" I nodded. I said, "Yes, and I am prepared to share it with corporate, with social media, with anyone who will listen, unless the situation is handled properly." My voice was steady now, strong. I was not yelling. I was not crying. I was stating facts. David shifted his weight. He said, "Let me speak to Marcus and see what happened." I shook my head. I said, I already told you what happened. I need to speak to the owner. Not you, the owner. David's jaw tightened. He did not like being challenged, but he nodded stiffly. He said, "I'll see if Mr. Romano is available." David walked away quickly. I could see him disappear through a door marked private. Several minutes passed. The restaurant continued buzzing around me. Servers delivered food, customers laughed, wine glasses clinked. But at my table, time seemed frozen. I sat perfectly still, my phone in my hand, my evidence ready. The older woman caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a small thumbs up. I smiled weakly back at her. Other diners had noticed something was happening. They were trying not to stare, but I could feel their curiosity. I did not care anymore. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when someone stands up. My heart was racing, but my resolve was solid. I was not backing down. Not this time. Not ever again. The minutes ticked by. 5, then 10. I started to worry that David was not actually getting the owner. Maybe he was just making me wait, hoping I would get frustrated and leave. But I stayed. I sipped my sparkling water. I kept my eyes on that private door. Marcus walked past my table once. He glanced at the wrong dish still sitting there untouched. He looked at me. For just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Uncertainty, maybe, or the first hint of worry. He kept walking, did not say a word. The couple at the table next to me finished their meal and left. New guests were seated in their place. The restaurant was busy, thriving. No one cared that I was sitting here with no food. No one except me, and the older woman who kept glancing over to make sure I was okay. I was okay. I was more than okay. I was determined. Finally, the private door opened. A man emerged who I knew immediately must be the owner. He was older, maybe in his 60s. He had thick white hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He moved with purpose, but not urgency. His eyes scanned the dining room until they landed on me. He walked directly to my table. His expression was serious, but not unkind. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down without asking. He extended his hand. He said, "I am Vincent Romano. I own this restaurant." His voice had a slight Italian accent, warm but commanding. I shook his hand. I said, "Jessica, thank you for coming out." He nodded. He said, "David told me there was an incident with your server. Please, tell me everything that happened, and do not leave anything out." I took a breath. I told him everything. I spoke calmly, clearly. I started with how excited I was to eat here, how this was a special celebration for me, how Marcus had laughed at my order, what he had said about plain pasta, about the children's menu, about rabbit food, how he had refused to get the manager, how he had brought me the wrong dish intentionally. Mr. Romano listened without interrupting. His expression grew darker with every sentence. When I finished, he said, "Do you have proof of any of this?" I showed him my phone, the video I had recorded. He watched it. His jaw clenched. Then I gestured to the older woman. I said, "She witnessed the entire interaction. She offered to be my witness." Mr. Romano looked over at her. She nodded solemnly. He turned back to me. He said, "May I see your security footage from tonight?" I blinked. Then I realized he was asking someone behind me. David had followed him out. He was standing nearby, looking pale. Mr. Romano stood up. He said, "Jessica, please wait here. I will be right back." He walked toward the back with David following nervously behind. I sat alone again. But this time it felt different. This time I felt hope. Real hope. The older woman gave me another encouraging nod. A young couple at a nearby table smiled at me sympathetically. They had been listening. Minutes passed. I could see staff members glancing toward the back, whispering to each other. Something was happening. Something big. Finally, Mr. Romano emerged again. His face was stormy, angry. But when he looked at me, his expression softened. He returned to my table. He sat down heavily. He said, "I have reviewed the security footage. I saw everything." He paused, shook his head. He said, "I am appalled. I am ashamed. This is not who we are. This is not what Bellissimo's represents." His voice was thick with genuine emotion. This was not a corporate apology. This was personal. He looked me in the eyes. He said, "You have my deepest, most sincere apology." Mr. Romano continued, "My father opened this restaurant 42 years ago. He taught me that every guest who walks through that door is family. Every single person deserves respect, dignity, kindness." His voice cracked slightly. "What happened to you tonight is a betrayal of everything my family built." I felt tears prick my eyes again, but this time they were not tears of humiliation. They were tears of relief, of validation. Someone believed me. Someone with power. Someone who could do something about it. Mr. Romano stood up. He said, "Marcus needs to apologize to you, publicly, in front of the same people who witnessed his cruelty." My eyes widened. I said, "You don't have to." He held up his hand. He said, "Yes, I do. You were humiliated publicly. You deserve vindication publicly." He turned and called across the restaurant, "Marcus, come here. Now." The entire dining room went silent. Everyone turned to watch. Marcus emerged. Marcus walked slowly toward our table. His confident swagger was completely gone. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. His face was pale. His hands trembled slightly. When he reached the table, Mr. Romano did not let him sit. He made him stand. Right there in the middle of the dining room, where everyone could see. Mr. Romano's voice was loud enough for nearby tables to hear. He said, "Marcus, I have reviewed the security footage. I have heard Jessica's account. I have spoken to a witness." Marcus's eyes darted to me, then to the older woman, then back to Mr. Romano. He opened his mouth, but Mr. Romano cut him off. "You laughed at this guest. You mocked her order. You made cruel comments about her choices. You deliberately brought her the wrong dish. Is that correct?" The silence in the restaurant was deafening. People had stopped eating, stopped talking. Everyone was watching. Marcus's face turned red. He nodded slightly. Mr. Romano said, "I need to hear you say it." Marcus's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes, I did those things." Mr. Romano said, "Louder, so everyone can hear." Marcus cleared his throat. His voice shook. "Yes, I mocked her order. I was rude to her. I brought her the wrong food on purpose." Saying it out loud in front of all these witnesses seemed to break something in him. His shoulders slumped. Mr. Romano turned to me. He said, "Jessica, Marcus has something to say to you." Marcus turned to face me fully. He could not meet my eyes. He looked at the table, at the floor, anywhere but at me. Mr. Romano said firmly, "Look at her when you apologize." Marcus finally raised his eyes to mine. I could see shame there. Real shame. He said, "I am sorry. What I did was wrong. It was cruel and unprofessional. You did not deserve to be treated that way. I am truly sorry." His voice cracked on the last words. The apology hung in the air. The entire restaurant heard it. I sat perfectly still, taking it in. This moment. The public vindication I had not even known I needed. All those people who had watched me be humiliated were now watching Marcus apologize. The power had shifted completely. I was no longer the embarrassed woman sitting alone. I was the wronged customer receiving justice. I nodded slowly. I said, "Thank you." My voice was quiet but steady. I did not gloat. I did not rub it in. I simply accepted his apology with dignity, because that is what this was about. Dignity. Mr. Romano said to Marcus, "Go to my office. We will discuss your future here after I take care of Jessica." Marcus nodded. He looked like he might cry. He walked away quickly. Heads turned to watch him go. Whispers erupted at several tables. I heard someone say, "Good. He deserved that." The older woman was smiling at me, proud, like I was her own daughter. I smiled back. My hands had stopped shaking. My chest felt light. I had done it. I had stood up for myself. And I had won. Mr. Romano sat back down across from me. His anger had faded. Now he just looked tired and sad. He said, "Your meal tonight is completely on the house. Everything. And I would like to give you a $200 gift certificate for a future visit, though I understand if you never want to come back." I shook my head. I said, "I would like to come back, if things change." He nodded gratefully. He said, "They will change. I promise you that." Then he stood up and said, "Now, let me get you the pasta primavera you originally ordered, and I will make it myself." I blinked in surprise. He smiled for the first time, a real warm smile. He said, "I started as a line cook in my father's kitchen. I still know my way around a pasta dish." He disappeared into the kitchen. I sat at my table, still processing everything that had happened. A server approached, a young woman with kind eyes. She said softly, "I'm so sorry for what Marcus did. Can I get you anything while you wait?" I asked for more sparkling water. She brought it immediately, with a genuine smile. 20 minutes later, Mr. Romano returned. He was carrying a plate himself. He set it down in front of me with a flourish. Pasta primavera. It looked absolutely beautiful. Colorful vegetables, fresh herbs, glistening olive oil. The aroma was incredible. He had also brought fresh bread, a small side salad, a glass of white wine. He said, "The wine is from my personal collection. Please, enjoy." I looked up at him with tears in my eyes. I said, "Thank you for believing me, for taking this seriously." He pulled out the chair and sat down again. He said, "I should be thanking you. You could have left, could have just posted a bad review online and never told me what was happening in my own restaurant. Instead, you gave me a chance to make it right." We talked while I ate. He told me about his father, about the values he had been raised with, about how heartbroken he was that someone on his staff had violated those values. The pasta was delicious, perfect, exactly what I had wanted. But more than that, the conversation was healing. He treated me like a person, like I mattered. As I finished my meal, Mr. Romano became more serious. He said, "I want you to know what will happen to Marcus." I set down my fork. I listened. He said, "He is suspended without pay for 2 weeks. When he returns, he will not work front of house. He will work in the kitchen, doing prep work, learning humility." I nodded slowly. Part of me wondered if that was enough. Mr. Romano continued, "This is his final warning. One more incident of any kind and he is gone, permanently. I have also enrolled him in mandatory customer service training and sensitivity training." He paused. "I know you might think I should just fire him, and I considered it, but he is young. He made a terrible mistake. I believe in second chances, but only one second chance." I thought about it. Then I said, "I appreciate that you are holding him accountable. That is all I wanted, for there to be consequences." Mr. Romano nodded. "There are, and there will continue to be." 3 weeks later, I decided to return to Bellissimo's. I was nervous. I almost canceled my reservation twice. But I wanted to see if anything had really changed, or if Mr. Romano's promises had been empty. I walked in on a quiet Tuesday evening. The same hostess greeted me. Her eyes widened in recognition. She smiled warmly. She said, "Miss Jessica, it's so good to see you again." She led me to a nice table, not by the window this time, but in a cozy corner. A different server approached, a young man named Antonio. He was polite, professional, genuinely kind. He took my order without judgment. When I ordered pasta primavera again, he simply smiled and said, "Excellent choice. That is one of our most popular dishes." No mockery, no condescension, just respect. As I waited for my food, I looked around. The restaurant felt different. Or maybe I felt different. I was not afraid anymore. I was not second-guessing whether I belonged. I knew I did. Halfway through my meal, I saw him. Marcus. He emerged from the kitchen carrying a large bin of dirty dishes. He was wearing kitchen whites instead of the server uniform. His hair was covered by a cap. He looked tired, humbled. He glanced out at the dining room and his eyes landed on me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then he quickly looked away. He hurried back into the kitchen. He did not come near my table, did not speak to me. I think he was ashamed, or maybe afraid. Either way, seeing him in that diminished position gave me a strange feeling. Not satisfaction exactly, more like closure. He had faced real consequences. He was learning. Maybe he would become a better person because of this. Or maybe he would just learn to hide his cruelty better. I did not know. But it was not my responsibility to fix him. I had done my part. I had stood up. The rest was up to him. As I was paying my bill, Mr. Romano came out of his office. He saw me and his face lit up. He walked over to my table. He said, "Jessica, you came back. I'm so glad." We shook hands like old friends. He asked how everything was. I told him the truth. The food was excellent. The service was wonderful. He looked relieved. Then he said, "I want to show you something." He led me to a wall near the entrance that I had not noticed before. There was a new framed sign. It read, "At Bellissimo's, every guest is family. We are committed to treating everyone with dignity, respect, and kindness." If you ever feel you have been treated otherwise, please ask to speak to Vincent Romano immediately. He had signed it personally. Below it was a card with his direct phone number. He said, "Because of you, we have retrained our entire staff. We have new policies, new accountability measures. You made us better." I felt tears well up. I said, "I just wanted to be treated like a person." He nodded. "And now everyone who comes here will be." Standing in that restaurant, looking at that sign, I realized something important. I had changed. 3 months ago, I would have left quietly. I would have cried in my car. I would have told myself it was not worth making a scene. I would have blamed myself somehow, wondered what I had done wrong. But I did not do that. I stayed. I spoke up. I demanded the respect I deserved. And it worked. Not because I was loud or aggressive, but because I was calm. Because I had evidence. Because I refused to accept being treated as less than. I think about that night often now, when I face difficult situations, when I feel dismissed or disrespected. I remember that I have a voice, and that voice matters. If you have ever been humiliated in public, I hope my story shows you that you do not have to accept it. You can stand up. You can demand better. You deserve dignity. You deserve respect. And when you refuse to settle for less, people listen. Share your story in the comments. Tell me about a time you stood up for yourself, or a time you wish you had. And subscribe to Revenge Leader for more real stories of real people who refuse to stay silent. Because they thought I would disappear quietly. They were wrong. If you loved this customer service revenge story, hit subscribe for more restaurant drama and workplace justice tales. Have you experienced rude waiter behavior or dining discrimination? Share your restaurant horror stories in the comments below. Remember, standing up against workplace bullying and demanding respect always pays off. Your consumer rights matter. Don't let bad customer service experiences go unreported. Document everything and speak to management immediately. For more real-life revenge stories about karmic justice and satisfying endings, click the notification bell. Thanks for watching this emotional storytelling journey. Justice served, dignity restored. See you in the next revenge story.